ॐ ॐ ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। ॐ श्रीकृष्ण परमात्मने नमः। अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता तृतीयोऽध्यायः कर्मयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच जायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन तत् किं कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजयसि केशव। व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच लोकेऽस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघ ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनाम्। न कर्मणामनारम्भा नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति। न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्यकर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः। कर्मेन्द्रियाणि संयम्य य आस्ते मनसा स्मरन् इन्द्रियार्थान् विमूढात्मा मिथ्याचारः स उच्यते। यस्त्विन्द्रियाणि मनसा नियम्यारभतेऽर्जुन कर्मेन्द्रियैः कर्मयोगम् असक्तः स विशिष्यते। नियतं कुरु कर्म त्वं कर्म ज्यायो ह्यकर्मणः शरीरयात्रापि च ते न प्रसिद्ध्येद कर्मणः। यज्ञार्थात् कर्मणोऽन्यत्र लोकोऽयं कर्मबन्धनः तदर्थं कर्म कौन्तेय मुक्तसङ्गः समाचर। Man is bound by his own action except when it is performed for the sake of sacrifice. Therefore, Arjuna, do you efficiently perform your duty free from attachment for the sake of sacrifice alone. Sahayajna praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavos will prosper by this. May this yield the enjoyments you seek. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreya paramavapsyatha. Foster the gods through this sacrifice and let the gods be gracious to you. Thus, each fostering the other selflessly, you will attain the highest good. Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayayvyo yo bhumte stena eva saha. Fostered by sacrifice, the gods will surely bestow on you unasked all the desired enjoyments. He who enjoys the gifts bestowed by them without offering anything to them in return is undoubtedly a thief. यज्ञशिष्टाशिनः सन्तो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः भुञ्जते ते त्वघं पापा ये पचन्त्यात्मकारणात्. The virtuous who partake of what is left over after sacrifice are absolved of all sins. Those sinful ones who cook for the sake of nourishing their bodies alone partake of sin alone. अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न संभवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवं तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्. All beings are evolved from food. Production of food is dependent on rain. Rain ensues from sacrifice, and sacrifice is rooted in prescribed action. Know that prescribed action has its origin in the Vedas, and the Vedas proceed from the indestructible God. Hence, the all-pervading infinite is always present in sacrifice. एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति हयः अघायुरिन्द्रिया रामः मोघं पार्थ स जीवति. Arjuna, he who does not follow the wheel of creation thus set in motion in this world, that is, does not perform his duties, leads a sinful and sensual life. He lives in vain. यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यात् आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते. He, however, who takes delight in the self alone and is gratified with the self and is contented in the self has no duty to perform. नैव तस्य कृतेनार्थो न कृतेनेह कश्चन न चास्य सर्वभूतेषु कश्चिदर्थव्यपाश्रयः. In this world, that great soul has nothing to gain by action nor by abstaining from action, nor has he selfish dependence of any kind on any creature. तस्मादसक्तः सततं कार्यं कर्म समाचर असक्तो ह्याचरन् कर्म परमाप्नोति पूरुषः. Therefore, go on efficiently doing your duty at all times without attachment. Doing work without attachment, man attains the supreme. कर्मणैव हि संसिद्धिम् आस्थिता जनकादयः लोकसङ्ग्रहमेवापि sampashyan kartumarhasi. It is through action without attachment alone that Janaka and other wise men attain perfection. Having in view the maintenance of the world order too, you should take to action. यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेवेतरो जनः स यत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते. For whatever a great man does, that very thing other men also do. Whatever standard he sets up, the generality of men follow the same. न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तमवाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि. Arjuna, there is no duty in all the three worlds for me to perform, nor is there anything worth attaining, unattained by me. Yet I continue to work. यदि ह्यहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मण्यतन्द्रितः मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः. Should I not engage in action scrupulously at any time, great harm will come to the world. For Arjuna, men follow my way in all matters. उत्सीदेयुरिमे लोकान् न कुर्यान् कर्म चेदहं शङ्करस्य च कर्तास्य उपहन्यामि मा प्रजाः. If I ever cease to act, these worlds would perish. Nay, I should prove to be the cause of confusion and of the destruction of these people. सक्ताः कर्मण्य विद्वांसो यथा कुर्वन्ति भारत कुर्याद् विद्वांस्तथा सक्तः चिकीर्षिर्लोकसङ्ग्रहम्. Arjuna, as the unwise act with attachment, so should the wise man with a view to maintain the world order act without attachment. न बुद्धिभेदं जनयेत् अज्ञानां कर्मसङ्गिनां जोषयेत् सर्वकर्माणि विद्वान् युक्तः समाचरन्. A wise man established in the self should not unsettle the mind of the ignorant attached to action, but should get them to perform all their duties, duly performing his own duties. प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहङ्कारविमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते. In fact, all actions are being performed by the modes of Prakriti. The fool whose mind is deluded by egoism thinks, I am the doer. तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्म विभागयोः गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते. However, he who has true insight into the respective spheres of gunas, modes of Prakriti and their actions, holding that it is the gunas in the form of the senses, mind, etc., that move among the gunas, objects of perception, does not get attached to them, Arjuna. Prakriter gunasammudhaः sajjante gunakarmasu tana kritsna vidho mandan kritsna vinna vichalayet. Those who are completely deluded by the gunas, modes of Prakriti, remain attached to those gunas and actions. The man of perfect knowledge should not unsettle the minds of those ignorance of imperfect knowledge. Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasyaadhyatmachetasa nirashi nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Therefore, dedicating all actions to me, with your mind fixed on me, the self of all, freed from desire and the feeling of me and cured of mental agitation, fight. Eme matamidam nityam अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. Even those men who, with an uncavailing and devout mind, always follow this teaching of mine, are released from the bondage of all actions. एत्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः. But they, however, who, finding fault with this teaching of mine, do not follow it, take those fools to be deluded in the matter of all knowledge as lost. सदृशं चेष्टते स्वस्याः प्रकृतेर्ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं यान्ति भूतानि निग्रहः किं करिष्यति. All living creatures follow their tendencies. Even the wise man acts according to the tendencies of his own nature. Of what use is restraint by force? इन्द्रियस्येन्द्रियस्यार्थे रागद्वेषौ व्यवस्थितौ तयोर्नवशमागच्छेत् तौ ह्यस्य परिपन्थिनौ. Attraction and repulsion are rooted in all sense objects. Man should never allow himself to be swayed by them because they are the two principal enemies standing in the way of his redemption. श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मात् स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वधर्मे निधनं श्रेयः परधर्मो भयावहः. One's own duty, though devoid of merit, is preferable to the duty of another well performed. Even death in the performance of one's duty brings blessedness. Another's duty is fraught with fear. We'll go back to this verse. So we did this previous verse. I think we repeated a couple of times. That is verse 30. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvara. And those wonderful ways in which a karma yogi has to act. Nirashir nirmama bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvara. Renouncing all actions unto me with a mind that is discriminating, that is adhyatma chetasa, devoid of expectations with reference to the future and any sense of mindness, without any anger or frustration whatsoever, fight. So what is the mental attitude with which a karma yogi needs to perform action is beautifully explained there. So going on to the next verse. ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. Shraddhavantaha, people who have faith, anasuyantaha, those who do not find fault, that is, are not intolerant of the goodness in others, ye, those, manavaha, people, may, my, idam, this, matam, teaching, nityam, constantly, anutishtanti, follow, te, they, api, even, karma bhihi muchyante, are released by the karmas or karma phalas. श्रद्धावन्तः अनसूयन्तः ये मानवाः मे इदं मतं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति ते अपि कर्मभिः मुच्यन्ते. Those people who constantly follow this teaching of mine, full of faith, without asuya, without finding fault with the teaching or the teacher, they too are released by the karma phalas. They are freed from the hold of the karma phalas. They gain moksha. We have seen the three types of people who perform karma. One type were kings like Janaka, who were also jnanis, wise men, all of whom remained active, even though they had the knowledge. They engaged themselves in activities simply because it was in their prarabdha to do so. They had to do it, and therefore they did it. There was no reason not to. They had nothing to lose, and others benefited from their actions. So that is one type of people. Those who do nothing but teach, have gained the knowledge, can also be included in this group, teaching being an activity. Sarva karma sannyasa is the renunciation of all activities in terms of knowledge alone. It is not to be taken literally, as we have seen. In terms of knowledge, you are not the doer. Knowing this frees you completely from all action, whether you perform activities or not. You may be a sannyasi or you may be very active in the world. In this way, then, there are two types of enlightened people, sannyasis and non sannyasis, with reference to lifestyle. But in terms of knowledge, there is sarva karma sannyasa for both. So, the one type of enlightened people are those who are no doubt sarva karma sannyasis, but they continue to act in the world. They continue to perform, like King Janaka and even Adi Shankaracharya. Whereas those who are non-sannyasis are also enlightened, like King Janaka. Yeah, sannyasis are like, for instance, Ramana Maharshi. Whereas non-sannyasis are like King Janaka and the rest of them who continue to work, but having the sarva karma sannyasa. Although Janaka was a king engaged in a lot of activity, he was considered to be enlightened. Here, Krishna told Arjuna that even if he was enlightened, he could continue to do karma for the benefit of the world, as Janaka did, for the sake of establishing dharma, so that the people would be protected. Krishna knew very well what his own mission was, saying, "Look at me, I too perform actions, not because I have something to accomplish, but because if I do nothing, others will follow my example, which would not be good for them." All this Krishna pointed out. A second type of people who perform karma are avivekis, those who have no discrimination and therefore no desire for moksha. They are only interested in fulfilling their likes and dislikes, for which they engage in activities. More often than not, such people cut corners and sometimes take the wrong path in order to accomplish their ends. These people can only be asked to come to Dharma. Let them pursue whatever they want to pursue according to Dharma. That itself is a blessing. So, one type of people are those that are enlightened. From in this group, there can be sannyasis and non-sannyasis. The second type of people are avivekis, those who pursue only ragadveshas. Now, finally, the third type of people, one's choice is surrendered to what is proper. Finally, for those who are mumukshus, who have ragadveshas, Krishna pointed out karma yoga. Such people can either take to sannyasa or karma yoga, either of which involves giving up, tyaga. For a sannyasi, tyaga means karma tyaga as well as all other tyagas, covering any pursuit or attachment. The person has to grow out of each and every one of them, renouncing them all before becoming a sannyasi. Or one can be a karma yogi. Such a person does what is to be done simply because it is to be done. The karma yogi's commitment to moksha being what it is, his or her choice of action has nothing to do with what he or she likes to do. So the third type of people are mumukshus. Mumukshu is one who does have ragadveshas, but they, for them, there are two paths available, sannyasa and karma yoga. Both require tyaga. So for a sannyasi, tyaga is giving up all types of pursuits except jnana. So, whereas for a karma yogi, he simply does what is to be done, giving up the attachment for the result. If, on the other hand, the emphasis is on doing what is convenient and what one likes to do, even a child will eventually question why he or she cannot do certain things. He or she will say, "Who are you to stop me? This is how you brought me up. Why now that I'm 16 are you trying to stop me from doing what I want to do? It doesn't make sense. You have always asked me what I want, and this is what I want." The psyche tends to react in this way when this particular approach is taken. So, when what approach is taken? When the approach of doing what is convenient is taken. So, this will be the question asked: why cannot I do what I want to do? Such an approach is not always right, nor does the world necessarily operate in such a way. Therefore, what is proper becomes important. To do what is proper may involve sacrifice in terms of your own pleasures, your own likes and dislikes. Unless you can give them up, it is impossible to do always to do what is to be done, kartavya. Therefore, propriety, not convenience, should be the ruling factor, all of which is implied in karma yoga. Propriety means what is proper and not what is convenient. Let me just get the dictionary meaning of the word propriety. Propriety meaning is refers to behavior that adheres to accepted social, moral, or professional standards, emphasizing correctness, decency, and politeness. So basically, um, so what is correct or what is proper? That is what propriety means. So therefore, propriety, not convenience, should be the ruling factor, all of which is implied in karma yoga. A karma yogi is a bhakta, a devotee. Without devotion, without the awareness of Ishvara, there is no karma yoga. Having said all this before, Krishna again picked up this thread. Performing all activities for the Lord's sake is one great yajna, one great offering. What you have to do in the situation you find yourself in is done as something that is dictated by Ishvara, meaning karma. Karma is the law, and the law is Ishvara. The choice of doing this or that is given to you, and that choice is surrendered to what is obvious. Each situation is nothing but karma unfolding itself, and inherent in it is an obvious course of action and expected action. This is what you do because this is how you have placed yourself based on your own past actions. And whatever are the results of the actions you perform, you simply receive them as prasada. So a karma yogi's attitude is that of a devotee. Unless he or she has awareness of Ishvara, there is no karma yoga. Because he considers karma itself as the law and the law as Ishvara. So he basically lives choicelessly. So the choice is surrendered. The choice of doing this or that is given to you. You have the choice. Kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, or anyathava kartum shakyam. But that choice is surrendered to what is obvious. Each situation is nothing but karma unfolding itself. Inherent and inherent in it is an obvious course of action, an expected action. This is what you do because this is how you have placed yourself. And then, whatever the results of that action you perform, you receive as prasada. How Krishna's vision is to be followed. The verb in this sense is anutishtanti, meaning follow, practice, or live according to. Manavaha means those who come under the mandate of Manu, the ordainer of the law that is Ishvara. In other words, all human beings. And how long do they live this way? Nityam, always. This is not just a morning or evening practice, nor is it a Monday, Friday, or Sunday practice. It is a constant practice. And what is it that is practiced? What do the people follow? They follow what was said by Krishna, his vision, me matam, this particular sadhana, karma yoga, and they follow it properly with shraddha, shraddhavantaha anasuyantaha, with no intolerance towards the Lord, his vision, or the karma yoga that he has advised as a means for gaining liberation, moksha. The Shraddha mentioned in this verse is looking upon the words of the Shastra, the Veda, as unfolded by a teacher as true. Whether one understands these words to be true or not, one at least accepts them in good faith. The Shraddha extends to the words of the Gita as well, since the Gita does not say anything other than what is said by the Veda. The English translation for Shraddha is faith. Shraddha is operative when, even though these scriptures may seem to be contradictory according to your perception, you accept them and inquire into their message. Shraddha grants you the disposition, the attitude necessary for further pursuit. So
Can
even
you please read this paragraph one more time,
yeah,
Doctor?
yeah, will read.
Thank you, Doctor.
The Shraddha mentioned in this verse is looking upon the words of the Shastra, the Veda, as unfolded by a teacher as true. Whether one understands these words to be true or not, one at least accepts them in good faith. This Shraddha extends to the words of the Gita as well, since the Gita does not say anything other than what is said by the Veda. The English translation for Shraddha is faith. Shraddha is operative when, even though these scriptures may seem to be contradictory according to your perception, you accept them and inquire into their message. Shraddha grants you the disposition, the attitude necessary for further pursuit. See, if you go back to the different types of um, people, we have astikas and nastikas. Astikas are those that believe in the Vedas.
Mm-hmm.
Nastikas are those that do not believe. All the Buddhists are nastikas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, to
Yeah.
begin with, you should have some faith in the Veda and what the Vedas say.
Mm-hmm.
Bhagavad Gita is nothing but the gist of all the Upanishads. Sarvo Panishado Gavo Dugda Gopala Nandana. So that faith in in what the Shastra is saying. Although it might seem to your perception, it might seem, oh, it's contradictory. What I see, what I perceive the world as is different from what the Veda is telling me, is what your experience might be. But still, the Shraddha gives you the disposition, that gives you the capability to inquire further.
Mm.
If one does not have,
Necessary for it,
you will
it
not
the
even come.
attitude necessary for further pursuit. It's
See, the Veda tells us, Tattvabodh tells us, Brahmashraya Maya and
Mm,
Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. That's what Tattvabodh tells us, right? So if you do not have faith in that, the Shraddha in that, oh, how come? What is Brahma? What is Maya? First of all, prove to me that Maya is there. If you come from that attitude, then there is no way you can further go further. So you have that initial Shraddha in the words of the Shastra. You accept them as true. It's not become your own experience. It's not come to your understanding still, but to begin with, you accept them. So then you can go further in what Veda is trying to teach, the Upanishads are trying to teach, or the Gita is trying to teach.
mhm,
What you can know is determined by what you already know. When you look at the Shastra in the form of sentences, you derive a certain meaning from it based on what you already know. Only on the basis of what you already know can you absorb or understand any sentence. In other words, you do not understand more than what you already know. What you will understand of the Shastra is determined by where you are coming from and where you are right now. Based on your past experiences and present understanding, there is a predisposition to what a sentence can reveal to you. Therefore, when you look at a sentence that has a new message to give, what can it give you? Can the intentions behind the sentence be understood? The intention of a sentence is important in communication. When someone forms a sentence, the person has an intended meaning to convey, and that meaning is what you should receive. Sometimes, however, the words spoken do not convey the intended meaning of the speaker. And even when the intended meaning is clearly conveyed, it is anyone's guess whether the listener or the reader will pick it up. This is especially true if the message is unlike anything that the listener already knows. Whereas, if the message is similar to what he or she knows, it is much easier for the person to pick it up. Using the knowledge he or she already has, the person can go further in his or her understanding of what is being conveyed. But if the message is entirely dissimilar, meaning that it is against everything the person has so far concluded about himself or herself and the world, it is not even mind boggling. It simply sounds silly. How can everything be one when all I see are differences? To say that these differences are false, that everything is mithya, when so much of what is experienced is tangible, the walls, physical bodies, objects, even the microbes that bother me so much, makes no sense whatsoever because everything seems to be so real. This is because the word mithya is not properly understood. Nor do the various translations help. One will translate mithya as false, another as illusion, and still another as delusion. To say that the world is any of these does not agree with my experience. To say the world is an illusion is itself an illusion. The very concept is an illusion. If you consider the world an illusion, where does that leave you? Are you not in the world? And since you are, does this not mean that both you and your statement are an illusion? If the one who talks is an illusion and that which is talked about is illusion, then talking also is illusion. This being the case, everything becomes Satya because the one who talks and what is talked about belong to the same category. If everything is illusion, where is Satya? Thus, you can call everything Satya or you can call it illusion. In Buddhism, everything is Mithya and therefore Mithya is Satya. To say everything is Mithya means that everything becomes Satya. Therefore, words like illusion, delusion, and so on simply do not convey what is intended unless there is an understanding of what Satya is and what Mithya is. To appreciate their meanings, you must know Vedanta, which means you must know what the statement Tattvam Asi means. And unless you know Tattvam Asi, you will not understand Tattvam Asi. Thus, we have an interesting paradox here. If you already know Tattvamasi, you need not study Tattvamasi. And if you do not know Tattvamasi, how are you going to understand Tattvamasi? It is for this reason that one needs a lot of Shraddha and a teacher who is well established in the knowledge. It is not a simple matter. To study Vedanta requires Shraddha. Otherwise, it will have no meaning whatsoever. So, what the import of all these paragraphs say is unless, see, any sentence, whatever the sentence is conveying, will depend upon your basic level of knowledge that you already have. Take us, for example, 4 years ago to what we are now. 4 years ago, when we all just started, we entered the portals of the Gita, we were different. Our understanding was different. But today, our understanding is deeper. So, because our knowledge base is so called has kind of increased a little bit, but better than what it was 4 years ago. So we are able to grasp whatever uh, to a greater extent. I will not say whatever the Shastra say, but to a greater extent, our understanding has improved. So therefore, so when you look at a sentence that has a new message to give, what can it give you? It can only give you to what extent you have understood. So when you look at Buddhists, for Buddhists, when you say the world is an illusion, for them the world is illusion, but that mithya is also satya. That is how much the Buddhists have understood, right? Whereas when you go one step further and ask who is the one who's saying this is mithya or this is satya, that is the one you are, is what Shankaracharya said, right? So,
Yeah.
right?
When we say illusion, it's more in terms of that viveka, right? It's not like we know everything is satya. I mean, everything is pervaded by Brahman. Sorry. But then again, when what is Atma and what is Anatma, like what is temporary and permanent, in those terms, that people have that belief, whatever they're seeing, this world or the money or how materials are permanent and they're going after it, that becomes that is more of delusion or illusion, right? rather than uh, whatever we are seeing is an illusion.
Yeah. See, if we consider a person who's not exposed to the Shastra at all, for
Mm,
him, if you tell him, hey, listen, all this is mithya, all this is illusion, he will just have pity on you. He'll say, what is this? I see people as different. I see me different from everybody else. I see the wall. I can touch the wall. I feel the wall. I'm able to eat. All this is real to me. How come and what grounds are you telling me all this is an illusion? Is what he can question. He will only have pity on you, on a person who's pursuing Vedanta, saying, oh, you are losing out on all this enjoyment in the world. That
true.
is when you,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that is ground level, a person who is not exposed to this
Any
Shastra
knowledge.
at all,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? So to
Mm.
begin with, all of us were in that state. It
Yeah.
was only because of some punya that we have done, probably, that we have gotten exposed to this knowledge. And then it is how are we able to pursue this further is because of that element of Shraddha.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just imagine you remove Shraddha from your study of of whatever, whichever text, let it
Mm-hmm.
be Bhagavad Gita or anything. Without Shraddha, can you take one step further? You will only be reeling in doubt,
Right.
isn't it?
It
So
only leads to confusion rather than have
it will,
pure.
yeah.
Mm.
And there is no knowledge that you will gain. You'll only go in circles and circles saying, um,
Mm.
this is all nonsense. You will categorize this as nonsense, and you'll say
Mm.
all this is madness. So that element of Shraddha is important. So this argument here, this paragraph to say the world is an illusion, it's the logic is like saying the door is half open and therefore the door is half closed. Correct,
Mm.
that is okay. But because
Mm.
the door is fully closed, the door is fully open. Is that true? It's not true. So that
No.
logic doesn't hold.
Mm.
So this is not logical. This is what the Buddhists are saying. The Buddhists
Mm.
say because everything is an illusion, where
Mm.
is Satya? Thus, you can call everything Satya or you can call it illusion. In
Mm.
Buddhism, everything is Mithya and therefore Mithya is Satya. To
Mm.
say everything is Mithya means that everything becomes Satya.
Mm.
Let's park that. Let's not get confused with that. That's the understanding of Buddhists. Now we'll come to
Okay.
why Veda is a pramana. Therefore, words like illusion, delusion, etc., do not convey what is intended unless there is an understanding of what Satya is and what Mithya is. That is when, Tattvabodh tells what is Satya? Kalatraye pitishtati iti sat. That which exists through all the three
Mm.
periods of time is Satya.
Eternal. Yeah. Mm.
Correct? So, to appreciate their meanings, you must know Vedanta, which means you must know what the statement Tattvamasi means. Now, unless you know Tattvamasi, you will not understand Tattvamasi. So there is a paradox here, right? So it is for this reason that one needs a lot of Shraddha. So that Shraddha is what you accept it pending inquiry. And for that, you require a teacher who's well established in the knowledge. You need a Brahmanishta and a Shrotriya and Brahmanishta. Shrotriya is one who is well established in the Shastra. So Vedanta is a pramana. Vedanta can never be the subject matter of academic pursuit because it is based purely upon Shraddha. The Shraddha is in the Shastra as a pramana for which supporting logic is given. Only when Vedanta is looked upon as a pramana, a means of knowledge, does it have a value. Otherwise, it has none. When I say Vedanta is a pramana, you have no way of proving that it is not a pramana, because one pramana cannot be dismissed by another pramana. This is because for a pramana to be dismissed by another pramana, it should be within the scope of the other pramana. But what a particular pramana makes you know is not available for verification or dismissal by another pramana. For example, when I see an object as yellow and it is really blue, only the eyes can disqualify what I saw as wrong. I may still see the object in the same way, but the eyes alone have to say, not the ears, that it is not yellow, it is blue. Due to some problem in the eyes, I may not be able to see it as blue. No other pramana has a scope here. Once a pramana is accepted as an independent pramana, then it has to prove itself as a pramana, as a means of knowledge. For it to do so, you have to give the pramana a chance. If you do not give the pramana a chance, you should not talk against it. You cannot establish that a means of knowledge is not a pramana just by talking about it. This is an unreasonable position to take, and a person who knows it as a pramana will have no interest in refuting such a stance. You have not allowed the pramana to prove itself to you. A reasonable stance can only be taken after you have analyzed the pramana and worked with it. But you can only do this if you accept it as a pramana in the first place. And to do this requires Shraddha. Therefore, when you work with it with Shraddha, it works. Only then can it prove itself. This is, if you take yourself back to the example of the surgeon who's operated upon this blind person and who has his eye band still on, and he's telling him, hey, listen, open your, I'm going to remove the eye bandage, open your eyes, you'll be able to see. Now, that is what the Vedanta is telling us. This is what Satya is, Tattvamasi. In order to understand that Tattvamasi, unless this person opens his eyes, he is not going to be able to know the truth that he's able to see. But if he is stuck with saying, only if you prove to me that I'll be able to see, I will open my eyes, he is stuck. He cannot move further, right? So similarly, questioning Vedanta as a pramana is like that person saying, only you prove to me first that I am what is Satya, only then I'm going to open my eyes. So that requires an element of Shraddha. That person should have faith in the words of the surgeon. With that faith, if he opens his eyes, he will be able to see the truth. Right? So in much the same manner, Vedanta is taken as a pramana without refuting it. And in order to dismiss Vedanta as a pramana, you need another pramana which has its own scope. Like, for example, the example given is when you see an object as yellow, but it is actually blue, it's only through the eyes you can see that it is yellow or blue. You cannot use your ears. You cannot use another pramana to say this is yellow or blue, right? You must use only the eyes. Therefore, Vedanta here is accepted as an independent pramana. So you don't have another pramana to prove that it is a pramana. That is the qualification of an independent pramana, right? So in order to take Vedanta as an independent pramana, you have to give it a chance to prove itself. And what is that chance to prove itself? Is you having Shraddha in it. Without you having Shraddha, you cannot take one step further. Yeah, anyone wants to share? So there is no basis for objection. The Pramana says you are not a jiva, an individual. That individuality is just a notion. It says you are Param Brahma, a statement that is not something to be simply swallowed. It is to be understood. Because the Pramana is saying something desirable, what basis do you have for any objection? None. Since the Pramana says you are Brahman, then until you see that you are Brahman, you should work with it. If you see that you are Brahman, there is no problem. And if you do not, on what basis can you say you are not Brahman? You can only say, Vedanta says I am Brahman, but I don't think I am. And besides, other people tell me I am an idiot. This seems to be more reasonable to me because it seems to be truer. When what is said by the Pramana is desirable, you are the whole, you are Brahman, then you have to go for it. No one needs to tell you that you are not Brahman. This you knew long ago. That you are not Brahman is not something that you have to be taught by a scripture, a religion, prophets, or messiahs. The Shruti is not telling you something you already know. It is telling you something that you do not know. It says you are Brahman, which is something desirable. To hear that you are the whole is definitely not undesirable because the whole is exactly what you want to be. Behind all your pursuits is the conclusion that you are small, and it is from this conclusion that you seek to be free. The Shruti tells you that you are already free from being small. Therefore, you have no basis for saying that what the Shruti says is wrong. You cannot prove that you are not Brahman. If you could, then Brahman would be within the scope of perception and inference, which it is not. Perception and inference are the means of knowledge available to me, the subject Atma, whose essence is Brahman. Atma is Brahman. Because Atma is not an object to be known by perception or inference, you cannot prove that the self is not Brahman. This is why Shraddha in the Shruti as a pramana is necessary. And because you have to understand what the statement Tattvamasi is, to be able to know it, you must go to someone who knows, a teacher. You may say that if the teacher can come to know, then you also should be able to figure it out. But the teacher came to know because he or she had a guru. And that guru came to know because he or she also had a guru. Like this, it goes on, right back to the first teacher. Lord Krishna said, by me alone it was taught in the beginning. At, and it works if you have Shraddha in the Shruti as a pramana. Shraddha is an attitude that enables you to say, the words are true. My understanding alone is not proper. And if Shraddha is not there, you will give it up, saying, I have studied so many Upanishads and have concluded that Vedanta is just another trip. The Upanishads say that you are Brahman, and other scriptures say that you are not. Which should I accept? They are all speculations. The very Upanishads themselves are contradictory. In this way, you can dismiss it all because of a lack of Shraddha. We'll stop here. Without Shraddha, confusion is inevitable. We'll go through this one more time tomorrow. We'll do some manana. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.